Ooh, conspiracy theorist. Welcome to the X-Files. So who's playing Mulder? Oh, I'm playing Mulder. Dan, you've got long hair, so you can play Scully.
That's fine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this update E5 podcast. I am one of your hosts today. My name is Paul Meenan. Thank you for joining us. And I'm joined by my brothers from other mothers.
Dan Jackson, aka Dan's the Engineer.
And
I'm here, David Watts, aka Sparky Ninja.
So, lads, worrying times, I think it's fair to say. This coronavirus thing is a talkable point in our history. We did a podcast just over a week ago.
Just over a week ago.
And I assume this one, once we've finished, we'll release it pretty much straight away or first thing in the morning. Yeah, society's changing. It's getting a bit scary for families and people. And we thought we'd do a little update to kind of just chew the fat and talk about what we know and try and find some of the positives in there, and maybe talk about how we need to adapt and adopt our ways of behaviours and the way we're thinking for the betterment of society in general. What's your thoughts on today's state of plays, chaps?
So for listeners, if we just tell you it's the 20th of March today, and obviously things are being released daily, and I actually personally find it quite hard to keep up with what's what. I think Twitter is the best thing, really.
Steady on, Dan. If you start saying stuff, you may get critiqued on LinkedIn, because we know there are people on LinkedIn who claim we're an industry-leading podcast, which we don't. And I also probably should chip in and state that these podcasts are our opinions. This is our thought pieces based on what we're reading on Sky News, BBC News, gov.uk, guidance notes that are sitting in front of us at the moment. We're just going to talk about everything.
We are just chewing on the fat of information that we have in front of us.
We're not offering formal guidance that you must comply with or anything like that. This is just three incompetent people talking about a virus that nobody really knows that much about. So there we go. I've said that. Anyway, apologies, Dan. I just wanted to clear that up because we were critiqued last week for our last podcast, you know.
Was we?
We were, yeah. Well, yeah, it was aimed at me and you, so don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Hello, if you're listening.
Well, I just hope everybody's okay. I mean, it is uncertain times. We don't know what on earth is going on. Is it the end of capitalism? I don't know. But you can't go anywhere and not talk about this, because there's just a funny feeling in the air, and
Funnily enough, Dan, Sky News actually did finish their recent report by stating that capitalism has effectively been kicked to the curb for the next 3 to 4 months. With all the measures that the government, and in all fairness, I'm going to say it, I know I'm in a majority of probably one, but I am quite impressed by the veracity and the consistent updating of what measures the government are taking, although everybody listening to this will probably say it's not enough, it's not quick enough. You can evidently see the wear and tear in everybody's faces. My missus works in the NHS. She's working all the hours she can.
Yeah,
it is putting pressure on society, and I think it's trying to calm.
To be honest, though,
appear.
I think there's been a lot of trust by the government on just the humanity of people to actually look at the media around the world and to make decisions from themselves. And it's only really because we've been listening more to our immediate media, which has just been a lot about fear, not about action. I remember the other night I mentioned to you guys, on the BBC there was a program called Hospital, followed by a program called The Flu That Killed 50 Million. It's like about the old Spanish flu. When you go into bed, this is socially irresponsible, and they've wanted to keep schools open for as long as possible, because obviously schools closing doesn't mean teachers are at home. It means schools are opening for essential purposes for the mums and dads that are key workers. But we need, we've had to take these measures because people are not behaving responsibly.
So is it worth
we've seen today just now talking about pubs, clubs and stuff being forced to close soon because, again, people are just not being responsible.
No, and the thing is, it's worth chipping in here, just going off on the fact street is the government's given clear guidance. There's self-isolation, if you there's household isolation, and then there's social distancing. And as I think Ryan put it best, it doesn't mean we have to lock ourselves away. It just means we have to be very pragmatic in how we approach people, how we interact with people. And the government, they finally asked parents to keep their children at home wherever possible. They know that they won't be able to do that for all children, especially children who have parents who are needed by the NHS or doctors. So they've asked schools to remain open. And it's really important that people do their own work to understand all that.
So just on that, Paul, my kids' school has officially closed today. It's Friday. And my son's preschool, they're not opening next week, but like full stop, even for key workers. But I've seen some stuff floating around on the social media channels that some electricians are deemed key workers, which I'm not too sure if that's true or not, because it says utilities.
Yeah, but utilities is stuff covered by statutory undertaker legislation. So if you two chat amongst yourself for a second, I'll just get up that piece of legislation. Not that I'm sad or anything quoting it, but...
fundamentally, we understand the initial consideration of key workers is, services, most services, NHS staff. But there needs to be some recognition to the need for, things to function. We need to keep the power on. Yeah. We need to keep the power on. We need logistics. There's no point trying to run hospitals if we can't deliver surplus requirements and just replenish materials. Same with food. Everyone's panic buying right now, but again, factories, businesses are trying to run for as long as they can. They're trying to send as many home as practicable for work, but essential staff will go in and factories will continue to operate. The only thing we're hearing about being shut down are these things, again, theatre, leisure, cinema, where people are still being socially responsible.
Okay, so thank you for that infill, Dave. So there is something called the Civils Contingencies Act, actually written in 2004, that makes provision for civil contingencies. It covers the whole of the UK, and what it does do is it defines the obligations of organisations to prepare for emergencies. It provides additional powers for government in the event of large-scale emergency, and it provides supplementary legislation to support the first two sections. So let's go straight into it. So what it does do is it identifies what is termed Category 1 and 2 responders. Okay, so each responder will have a role to play in helping support the government. Category 1 responders are known as core responders, and they include the usual blue light emergency. So local authorities, police force, including BTP, fire, ambulance, Coast Guard, NHS hospital trusts, NHS foundation trusts, Public Health England, Public Health Wales, Port Health Authorities, Environment Agency around the UK. And they're like the core people that will be the first line response to any major national disaster or incident or emergency. The Category 2 one, and I'm leading on to where the electricians sit in this, Category 2 responders are key cooperating responders that act in support of the Category 1 responders. Okay, so Category 2, and it states in the legislation, are mostly utility company and transport organisations. So utilities includes electricity distributors and transmitters. So electricians or HV guys that are working, cable jointers, people who operate the DSOs, the DNOs, the national grid, the gas distribution networks. You could, water and sewage undertakers, keeping the plant and the sewerage going, telephone service, fixed and mobile, incredibly important. Do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't list it. Fiber optic and telecoms like Virgin.
Data.
Data, absolutely critical. Network rail, because all of these Category 1 responders need to get to work. Train operating companies, so that's passenger and freight. I'm very fortunate. I work for a train operating company.
Not necessarily the fairly urgent fuse board replacement down the local Chinese takeaway.
No. Not necessarily, no.
That is the difference. It's about understanding the actual intention.
But just to carry that on, Highways England, TfL, London Underground, airport operators, harbour authorities, health and safety executive, all of those people. Now, interestingly enough, so I employ electricians, and my electricians are carrying on. The very simple reason is, for the trains to run, the trains need energy and power. Some of that is provided by Network Rail, who are also critical. Some of it is provided locally. And when it comes into the station, I need to be able to provide contingency. So if my lights trip, if my electrics, so I am at this moment in time, as we record this, still having electrical works done on my railway to ensure it's maintained, safe, because the last thing you want is a key worker getting injured or hurt. So people who support those category 2 or even category 1, if you're working, I saw someone the other day saying they're working on a police station. If you're doing work on a police station, that could easily be deemed critical worker, because if the police need to expand their capacity for civil offences, they will immediately say you must do this.
And again, I should imagine, let's say you're in the temporary installation sector of generators, if we're going to end up having some kind of military responses or some very, what might look aggressive actions in London, where we're going to have temporary tents or marquees and these kind of checkpoints. They're going to need power, they're going to need data, so we're going to need to have
they will be authorised by the category 1 or category 2 responders. It's as simple as that. So you could be a commercial electrician, and a local fire brigade or ambulance worker they may need to set up tents or whatever, and may need some site supplies. You may be able to do site supplies. The minute you get that phone call saying, can you come and do it, you would effectively be authorised under that legislation to do the work the minute you've entered into agreement.
Sorry, was this the Civil Contingencies Act?
Yes.
2004.
So one of the things that a lot of guys on social media sadly have been saying, and it's an interesting debate, and I agree with some of it, a lot of Sparks have been saying, we're urgent because somebody's cut and paste that list where it says electricity or electricians, distributors, and it's been misinterpreted. Now, the argument and the debate is, if you're an electrician and you're called out to an old folks' home or a vulnerable person's home, or someone who's on dialysis, then I would argue for that person's life you are. However, under the legislation to protect the infrastructure and the functioning of this United Kingdom, you're not. However, personally, from a one-to-one, if my next door neighbour, her power supply failed, then I would be under redress to go and do it. But it doesn't apply to your day-to-day, I'm changing your fuse board, love, on a planned job.
So without obviously trying to assume you have an answer to this, if for example there was some kind of mandate put through that we were to all self-isolate because we've not been behaving ourselves, and your local regular old folks home calls you up and they've got a power outage and it's going to obviously be a loss of power, this wouldn't be considered as a legislator that could actually then allow for that. So what would you personally do in that circumstance?
Well, what would probably happen is the ambulance services or the local authority would then authorise someone to go and do the work. Because if you had an old folks home with, say, 50 vulnerable persons in it, they would immediately probably have local procedures where they would ring up the local authority, the local council, the police or the fire service and say, look, we're self-isolating in this building, we've got a power loss. The DNO, who will still be working, will be responsible for, because they'll be out and about, getting the power back up and running.
And this is just something that I'm thinking about right now, and I've written so many rules, procedures, systems of work, whatever you want to call them, for organisations. In care, in production, in food, and all these things. I've never thought about this situation.
No one has.
Or an action. What if this? So I'm going to have to download this, and I guess technically, potentially, when I next review some of these standards, this now has to come into consideration as a contingency. So where it stands or what procedure.
Here is another contingency for you, Dave. So if the guidance or the mandate given to people to socially distance, close the pubs, clubs, because they've just announced that today, pubs, theatres, restaurants, gyms, leisure, to close as of the 21st of March, which is tomorrow as we're recording this. If that's the case, if in, say, 2 to 4 weeks the case numbers are still going up and people are ignoring that advice, then you can only assume that the government will have to take more intervention steps. If that's the case, and one of those ways of intervening is to shut the transport network, then effectively anyone who's deemed critical support in the transport network will be self-isolating.
Yeah.
We don't know, because this is a really strange disease that is absolutely, let's be honest about it, this disease is kicking the planet in the bollocks. By far,
Yeah.
it's caught everyone with their pants around their ankles. It's shown vulnerabilities and weaknesses in our supply chains, the way we behave, the way we work, the way we procure, the way we trade abroad. It's politically,
and it just really shows how the wheel has to keep turning, and as soon as someone puts the brake on, everything collapses.
Yep. And this
which
is why
is scary. Which is scary.
And you referred to capitalism at the beginning, Dan. I mean, technically, if we've been like brought up to trust capitalism, to live to this, and then this kind of can happen, where suddenly, oh, you can't go out, you can't work, but you must pay your bills. You know, this is going to potentially rewrite a lot of things.
Okay, so let me give you a last piece, a thought piece. So there is a leading commentary on the Act by a chap called Clive Walker and Jim Broderick. And I'm going to read it verbatim because it's a fascinating commentary at the bottom of the legislation, if you need to find this. And it says, the government's handling of risk and emergency in recent years has failed to inspire public confidence. In a range of crises, from foot and mouth, I remember that. Outbreak, through to the grounds for war in Iraq. Yep, another fake war. False war, sorry. Official predictions or capabilities have been found wanting. The Civils Contingencies Act of 2004 tenders reassurance by the promise of systematic planning and activity in civil resilience. Though defence lies beyond its scope, the wide-ranging powers in the Act have the capability on delivering on the promise, but all shall be revealed. Efforts will be hampered because this legislation is hesitant and uneven. Interesting.
That's very interesting. I mean, that bit there, it says, you know, the Act tenders reassurance by the promise of systematic planning and activity in civil resilience.
Yeah. So resilience, making sure that the food chains don't break down, because you will get civil disobedience. However, I'm going to say this out loud, forgive me, there's a lot of bellends out there who are going out and buying loads of bog roll when they haven't got diarrhea. There's loads of bellends out there going and buying 100 tins of soup and everything else. When a good friend of mine, and it's also been on the news as well, actually, this country has enough food for about 6 months for everybody, no problem at all. And the trouble is people are not going out and buying for a week. They're going out and buying for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It's awful.
But again, the problem is people think that, you know, we mentioned this, you know, what was the different terms? You've got self-isolation. What were the others?
Oh, sorry, mate.
Social distancing.
Social distance. There was a third one, I think you said.
Yeah, there's household isolation, social distance, and self-isolation.
But this is the thing. I mean, social distancing is nothing to do with self-isolation. Self-isolation is clearly, you know, where you've got to basically, you know, keep yourself out of the way. But the idea being you've got to recover.
What is interesting is the guidance on social distancing for everyone in the UK is about protecting older people and vulnerable adults, but it's fairly evident from the stuff in the news at the moment that it's affecting young people as well, because it says age 70 or older, regardless of medical conditions. But then it talks about asthma, constructive pulmonary disease, bronchitis, chronic heart disease, kidney disease, hepatitis, Parkinson's, motor neuron, diabetes, sickle cell, HIV. Great.
But anyone who's been on chemo is vulnerable because of their immune system being down.
The last bullet point says being seriously overweight. Great, that's me. So I am a vulnerable person, according to this, for being fat.
Well, did you hear that guy? The guy who I think that link of that dude who was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He was talking about the problem with America. The biggest primary problem is the obesity over there. You know, the amount of vulnerable people because of that. And when they look at Joe Rogan, he had a guy come on. He was one of the experts. He's written a book, and he was one of the experts that got involved with the old mad cow. And he goes around trying to fight these. And he said when you look around the world, you know, you've got different results, different responses to this disease because, you know, we can't just say over 70 because when you go to other parts of the world, you know, with obesity and things like that, there are a lot more vulnerable people in certain populations. And so as you go around, the demographic, the behavior of this thing is very, very different.
So just to let you know as well, social distancing, there are measures and steps you can take to reduce social interaction. We're social distancing, lads, technically. We're miles apart. But it says there's a list of 6 items. Avoid contact with someone who is displaying symptoms. They include high temperature or continuous cough or new cough. Avoid non-essential use of public transport, varying your travel times. Work from home where possible. Avoid large gatherings and gatherings in smaller spaces. So henceforth, 4 has pretty much been switched off as of today. Avoid gatherings with friends and family. It's very difficult to do. Keep in touch using remote technology, and then using telephone or online services to contact your GP.
Yeah, but this all of that is fine. But obviously, most electricians can't do the majority of that and earn an income, which is obviously the biggest worry here is the income.
Indeed.
See, the problem is everyone's panicking, so everyone's cancelling. People think self-isolation means we must all stay in, we must all lock ourselves in, and they've been stocking up. You know, the social distancing hasn't been spoken about. And as you say, it's about suitable behaviours, only going on public transport when it's essential, to from work, to from appointment, you know, just cutting out on some of the luxuries of life, such as going to the pubs and stuff, where you're going to go into close confined spaces and you're going to then spread this or risk catching. That's the point, trying to stop it spreading. But you can still go for a walk, you can still go to work, and it's up to the workplace.
Still do exercise. Yeah.
It's up to the workplace to try to manage this and try to prevent the unnecessary likelihood of traveling to work. So factories are still right now, I've been emailing the guys, they're still working. I've had cancelled training because I'm a non-essential travel. They don't need the training next week. We'll postpone it. So I can get cancelled, but they still got to work. They've still got to turn over a business. They still need to make the food. Food is being made right now. Food is going to go onto lorries tonight. It's going to arrive at the distribution centres, and it's going to go to your supermarkets in the next couple of days. We've got paracetamol for years in stock. This is what the doctor at Sky News has said. It's just a case of allowing normality to work and logistics to take part. It will happen. The problem is people aren't listening to that.
It will calm down a bit. It will. In fact, I mean, it has to.
It will, because these people are going to start realizing they're going to eat some of the food they've got. They're going to panic again. They're going to go back and go, oh, hang on. And it's going to be less and less demand and stress. And obviously, as I just said, stuff's on the motorway right now, going to stores.
I think one of the news, I think it was ITV News, they were interviewing someone who worked in Tesco's or Sainsbury's, and they were saying that basically every day for the last fortnight has been like the mad rush of Christmas Eve. So surely most houses must be stocked to the gills by now. So at some point there must be a lag on the stresses on this, because I mean I've been into Tesco's and stuff, and it's been pointless. If I go to my local Spar, shelves are full.
I find my local Tesco's, there's still loads of fresh veg, and that's what I mainly eat. And I'm surrounded by farms, so there's loads of like farm shops. There's even a local wagon that comes in my village of fresh veg.
But again, I mean, people are still working. I mean, one of the biggest issues we're seeing as trades is obviously the homeowners or the smaller clients are cancelling, and the commercial clients are considering a lot of the work to be non-essential yet. But as Paul's just said, he's still got to maintain his infrastructure, so he still needs electricians on his railway. It's a case of essential work. Now, if you're an electrician or a tradesman who carries that maintenance of essential works, we had Gary on podcast recently. That'll be coming up. No, we've done that. We launched that one just today, didn't we?
Today,
he's in water. He's in water, and that it's essential work to keep stuff churning, to keep things running.
Well,
and I think also me trying to explain to my children about where food comes from and why this is happening, but also I'm having to do it to some adults.
Why? But some adults are children.
No, but even like water, we need men and women to run it, for it to get to our taps. And I think this is a massive wake-up call for people to actually realise where all this stuff comes from. It don't just come out, obviously rain comes out of the sky, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, even Bella, my wife, I mean, I said to her, it's probably a good idea to get a couple of bottles of water, because you need to stay hydrated, because if you do get this, you need to drink if it is in your mouth, drinking will send it down to the acids in the stomach and kill it. So drink, especially if you're out. And when you've just washed, have a drink as well. She's like, oh, the tap will always be on. I was like, oh no. Yeah. If people, it depends. I mean, it should be essential, but
Listen, if the water stops, then there's a bigger problem there. And if water did 100%. Stop, I don't think it would. Listen, if water stopped in this nation, there would be major panic. There would be civil disobedience beyond belief. The level of resilience, in all fairness though, the level of redundancy in water management, treatment, and I mean they've been spending billions now on water systems, plant pumps for years to ensure the continued supply of water.
Having said that, I know it's completely different, right? But I've been in India, and quite regularly the water isn't there. And
no, that's true.
You get
but
by.
India doesn't have the infrastructure that we have.
I know it doesn't, and it's completely different. But for a short period of time, it's not the end of the world. You have to change your behaviours and act differently to what you've got. Like the power is on probably,
but again,
less than it is on.
Yeah, but again, I mean, biggest issue right now is obviously people's responses. We're seeing people being sacked or people being let go. For companies to protect their business. Now we've obviously had today an effort to kind of repair that damage, but it's in some cases it still might be too late.
Am I allowed to be mortified at Richard Branson asking for a government bailout when he's sitting on £4 billion in his bank account, and yet what was it, 43 million it would cost to pay his employees or something?
Having read his book and listened to his audio book, I mean, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Is he arrogant?
He is a bit of a chancer.
Chancer is the word,
so there's a positive. But there's a positive that will come out of this. The companies that are shown to only care about maintaining their big, fat, comfortable way of living, they're the ones at the end of this that need to be basically taught a goddamn lesson.
Capitalism.
Yes.
I mean,
but there are some companies that are saying, you'll get fully paid, don't worry about it, etc. No problem at all. These ones that are just holding on to profits. I mean, there is a massive balance in companies, aren't there? I mean, we all know electricians that live week to week. I know sparks that literally every Friday, if they didn't get paid, they would run out of fuel on a Saturday, Sunday morning, and they wouldn't be able to go to work on a Monday.
The majority of self-employed sparks are on that basis.
Yes. Because we're struggling.
And right now, I listen to a guy I follow, one of these money kind of guys. He runs a whole load of holiday or leisure parks, and he said, well, the first thing we've got to do is look after our staff. We've got 600 staff. We must, cash is king was the words he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the first thing he said is what you need to do to all the people following is not pay your bills. Cash is king. Hold on to your cash so you can pay your staff. And I'm thinking, those bills are probably other people who need that cash. But a lot of companies will be taking that action. So a lot of people I've seen some guys in the pat testing sector having issues right now because a lot of people aren't getting paid because companies are holding on to cash because of the threat of their own payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that, Dave, don't we? Cool, blimey. Yes, no, that is very, very true. It's I think there's going to be a lot more challenges for people going ahead. Yeah, no, I agree. However, the government today have announced, our Chancellor, he has announced that the government are going to pay 80% of the wages for people who are unable to work up to a maximum of $2,500. Now, interestingly enough, in the, I think it's on Sky News or BBC News, they've said the 80% of that. Yeah, they plan to pay 80% of workers' wages where needed.
Employees, though, doesn't it? It says
yes.
PAYE employees.
PAYE employees, and more importantly, that they will only cover the ones the initial start of it. It will pay 80% of wages for employees unable to work due to the coronavirus, but only if those people have already been sacked. So it's almost an incentive to bring them back. And it says the wages cover, which relates to gross pay, will be backdated to the start of March and last for 3 months, but they may extend it if longer. And it's quite interesting because they're like hotels and stuff that have sacked people. So this is obviously in place to try and incentivize them employers to say, no, don't pay them up to X amount and we'll cover you for it. But it's the risk that person or chain run operating at a loss. But then again, this is where I think banks and everywhere needs to just freeze. I mean, I know VAT's been kicked to the curb now for 4 months, which is incredible.
Been kicked down a can.
Down interest rate
4
is
months,
0.01, which is the lowest in the history of the world. And there was a wonderful tradesman earlier on Twitter did a video, which I think I shared, where he said,
I saw it. Yeah,
he said that we're now at the lowest interest rate ever in the history of banks. And people are struggling, and the banks need to step up because 5-6 years ago there was a recession. that they caused, and we bailed them out. And now it's their turn to bail us out, and I absolutely agree with that. There needs to be a unprecedented level of compassion from banks and bill paying organisations. So like the utilities, the electricity companies, people who are in fuel poverty, they need to take a serious look, because if the likes of British Gas or Eon Energy start threatening people with letters over the next 3-4 months because they're not paying the electricity bill, they will have no customers at the end of this.
On that word of compassion, Paul, I think a lot of people are showing community spirit here in the light of all of this as a positive. I'm definitely seeing it in my area that, you know, there's some electricians who are offering to do some works for the elderly if they need it in an emergency for free. There's quite a lot of people doing that, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think in my area, people were kind of offering to help out within their limitations. Yeah. And I think that will continue. And I think this is a time where actually it brings a lot of people together and closer.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep as many people I can working in work, but also I've got work that needs doing around my house as well, like, you know, small works. But I've been trying to get some like double glazing done and like a boiler shifted and various bits and bobs. And I've actually spoke to some plumbers and said, look, if you're struggling, just come to my house. I'm not, you know, on self-isolation. As long as you're not, come and work. You know, I'll pay them. But I just feel that everybody needs to be, again, it's only my view. I think we need to just be calm, adopt a common sense approach, isolate if you need to isolate, and just try and help and support people as you can.
Yeah,
without being mad.
It is really hard though, because obviously there's massive conflicting information, and plus the unknown of what you do with your cash and how long it's going to last, and depending on your situation.
Yeah,
because
but
we're all different situations.
There's certain things in life you can't control. I mean, I can't control the government. I can't control many of the things happening around me. But the one thing I can control is my sphere of influence, my home, the ground that it's on, the people that I know, the friends that I have. I can talk to them and use them as for support. I mean, I've got a garden which you guys know about. I napalmed it 9 months ago. And that garden now is just barren. And for me, one thing I can do is I can actually learn from this, because if there's another virus or there's more food shortages, I want to be able to grow my own food. I want to develop my skills.
That's what I'm already
positive.
That is literally what I'm already thinking about. Like,
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Starting tomorrow. I'm actually digging up my garden. I've got a skip outside my house, and I'm going to be digging up my garden, planting some beds, and seeing whether or not I can grow my own food.
I mean, Dave, you've got 4 boys, so. Yeah. Have you got a good enough garden to grow your own stuff?
Well, I've got 2 dogs that are digging it up.
Oh, right.
I have right now, I've got 4 packets of seeds on my mantelpiece that arrived yesterday.
Yeah.
And Bella is looking at, when she grew up in a nice house, you know, nice family in North London, you know, the posh end, before she married me. She grew up, she had chickens, and she's always wanted to have chickens.
Yeah.
So she wants to get a chicken coop. We're going to have some chickens in the garden on one side, and we're going to start growing. Yep.
Yeah. Get some raised planters. And say goodbye to your grass if you ever let the chickens out, because they'll eat that in seconds.
Well, we've got a path in the garden which splits the garden, and so we've got one side for the dogs, one side for a chicken coop, and some planting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff. It's, if anything, we as a society need to keep ourselves busy. And I know that lots of people living in flats will say, well, I can't keep myself busy, but you can maybe build some bonds, do something, catch up on stuff.
That's kind of where I've got to. I mean, I'm one of these persons that is right now at the end of the shitty stick, because I'm self-employed. I've got 4 kids, wife. No, she doesn't work. I'm the only revenue stream. All my work has been cancelled for the past 3 weeks because of training. So I've got I had dates booked up to July. All of it's gone. Wow. Even exhibitions, conference, everything's gone. Everything's cancelled. Training isn't needed. It's not essential, so it's cleared. I've got a couple of thoughts on this. I can either panic and blame and be angry, or I can try to be positive. And I have obviously a bit of faith in that everyone else is in the same position. So if I can't pay a mortgage, I mean, I can call the mortgage guys. I can ask for a 3-month holiday or whatever on this, tax, all this stuff. I have a bit of grace with that. I have enough money in the bank to feed the kids. Bella's looked at tight budgeting. We've got a couple of months worth of money to pay for food.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I just need to be busy, like Paul just said. I need to keep myself busy. And I thought, well, what do I do? And obviously, I've got a website that's in development. It's not ready yet, but I can get a lot of work done on that. And that's great. But I thought, well, what I can do is I can just use social media, and I can use basically the people that I know and engage with to see if there's anyone who wants opportunities to engage, talk. And so I'm going to throw out the opportunity to do some seminars and just the one thing if people say, what's your party trick? I guess my party trick is trying to be positive and talk about CPD and trying to improve training. So I guess now really what the industry needs, and we're going to touch on this in a minute, this is a time where people in the industry need to actually show what they can give to the industry.
Yeah, give back. Yeah, because we're all in it.
We're all in it.
We know we're all in it, and it'll be interesting to see what some of the organisations are coming up with here. So because
I'm not an organisation. I don't take money for things, but I'm going to do my best to give as much free support as I can. I might also offer some paid support for guys who want that extra specific help on their training.
Yeah,
that might help out some of the services. I've invested in Zoom, which costs like I think the thing I've got going to do seminars is like 50 quid a month, so I can keep it going for 2 months. But hopefully, I take a bit, I can pay for longer. But that's what I'm going to commit my time to doing positivity, engaging. A lot of electricians may be isolated; they may work for themselves and live on their own, and social media becomes one of their methods of communication. So we want them to have an opportunity to talk to people, but also learn. So instead of just being moany banter.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Dave, because I'm quite often trying to avoid lots of negative stuff, and you can't escape it right now. So it's
really
good.
It's hard.
Yeah, so that sort of thing is great.
I had this chat with my dad earlier on Discord because he's in the same position. He's actually going on part-time retirement because his work is basically half of it's race, half of it is training, and half of it is working for a certain race course. All races off the calendar now.
Yeah.
So he said, well, I'm going to use this time. I had a chat with him. I said, I'm going to use this time to update my training syllabus, and I'm going to do some social stuff like you do. He said this to me. So we're going to do some joint streams. We're going to do some joint seminars.
Is he going to come on the podcast?
He'll come on podcasts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Grandfather Ninja on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that is so intimidating. He's
going to be more and more online. He's going to be online.
So, Dave, can you just close your ears for a minute? So, for those listening, if you haven't fallen asleep,
turn my headset down.
David Watts Senior makes David Watts Junior look very childish and dumb. The man is off the charts, intelligent, and X-Fire as well. So,
X-Fire,
a wealth of knowledge and competence. Privileged to know, and
he loves winding me up as well.
Oh yeah, no, everybody does. In all fairness, to be honest, you're easy to wind up.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to do. Positivity.
There's also a lot of stuff out there for other stuff like for kids. I think the body coach Joe Wicks is doing free videos for children next week. I believe it's 9 o'clock in the morning, like a little workout thing for kids.
Oh really? That's
cool. Which is good because I'm looking after my children next week, so I'm going to be doing. Obviously, trying to keep them occupied doing stuff, so that's active.
Well, if you look on Instagram, it's like John Legend, the guy Chris Martin from Coldplay. They did some songs. They just did some live stuff. Bella last night, I went in after doing some work. She was watching Michael Bublé and his wife.
All right.
And he was making pasta in the kitchen.
Oh, I thought he was going to say making love.
No, he was making pasta in the kitchen, just talking, and he was basically saying we need to be positive. The health systems are under critical levels, and they're trying to promote the idea of self-isolating, by doing stuff in the home.
Have you seen the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost video?
They
recreated Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, about not going to the Winchester and sit down, have a cup of tea, and wait for it all to blow over. It's a very good video on YouTube.
I'll check it out later.
It's interesting, the dynamics of people turning to online. So this is going to be a real test of the internet, and I know YouTube have said that they're going to reduce their bandwidth and the quality of their videos so they can cope the traffic. And
I've noticed my internet keep cutting out. I mean,
it will, because it's going to be really under a lot of strain.
I've actually used the time so far to do some stuff around the house that I've been putting off for ages. So
I've got loads to do around the house, of gardening and tidying up and all sorts to do. There's tons to do around the house, but Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do it. And this is the thing about keeping yourself busy. I mean, a lot of people are focusing on that number one thing of there's lots to do. I mean, even in work, we're now all doing Google Hangouts for meetings. Today I've spent probably 6 hours on work meetings. Eventually I'm going to have some time to close myself off and do all that admin that I've been needing to do. But it's not like 2 or 3 days worth of admin. It's 3 or 4 weeks worth of writing and typing. And
what I find interesting is a lot of people who are now working from home, and there's easy technology out there. I've done it for a long time, and but people's reactions are like, this is actually okay. And the typical having to go to an office.
Yeah, but I still watch some seminars run by some companies, and it sounds like the guy doing the voice is on dial-up. Either the microphone they get is just of the lowest quality, but
mine's been playing up today. My new microphone.
Yeah, you've been Barry Whiting us.
But I mean, Google's, even Facebook, these all offer these video platforms now.
Yeah, Skype.
Well, I use Skype. My microphone I love. I've got this, I think it's called Blue, but it's a Yeti White, described on Amazon as a Yeti White, and it's got 4 microphones in it for surround, and it's absolutely phenomenal for Google Hangouts, Skype calling, everything. You don't have to have it right up to your face. It's fantastic. So I've got some controversy for the last bit of this. And I don't know if I should say this, but I think it's the elephant in the industry at the moment.
Go on.
So if, as some people have suggested online, this may go longer than 3 months. Some people have been saying this could go a year, 18 months before we get back to some normality. Although I hope normality includes changes for the betterment. There are a lot of people who are professionally registered, and there are a lot of electrical contractors registered with NIC, NAPIT, etc., who are paying fees. And a lot of them people will not be practicing. Potentially, they will be claiming help from government subsidies, loans, etc., for at least some period. It would be interesting to know what the industry bodies are doing about that, because for me, I pay a lot of money in professional subscription fees, and if I'm going to be self-isolating for 6 to 9 months, it would be nice for those industry bodies to maybe give me some of my money back.
We'll see.
Yeah. The elephant in the industry.
Well,
I'm not suggesting.
Let's remember that the majorities are private organisations.
Well, and this is the thing. So if I am a member of a company, I won't mention them, and they give me a full scope certification for being a practicing electrician, and my business suffers for the next 3 to 6 months, which potentially it could, I've had no benefit of said membership.
No. If it was me, if I ran an organisation like that, I'd have 2 options. One is obviously to restructure some parts of it, looking at this issue that I get support from the government, and refund some money. Or I would offer a potential free CPD tracking for it as an alternative to my registered electrician. I'd say, well, okay, look, do you want this refund? Or do you want access to XYZ media training?
Yep.
Indeed.
I think some form of compensation
to come back. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing for those who work in the electrical industry or building services. It would be good for those industry bodies to give something back. Now, obviously, this is, just to be clear, this is very, very early days, and as Dave said earlier on, in a month's time, it may all be back to normal. We may be fine, and that's great. And do you know what? Everybody can take the hit. Well, when I say take the hit, but if it's a month, then fair enough. We count our blessings. We move on. But if it's longer than a month, then everybody needs to come to the table. And again, I use the C word, compassion, not competence this time. Or maybe compassion for competence. I don't know. But if people are going to be sitting around not doing much, this is a critical time to keep the brain cells going, because lots of sparks every day walk onto a job and there's a challenge, there's a thought process, there's an understanding of manufacturer's instructions. If they're not doing that for a matter of weeks, okay, fair enough. But if it goes into months, then that knowledge starts to dwindle and disappear. And that's where all the industry parties need to play their game.
And I was away for a year, and I can vouch for that. If you're not constantly doing it like regularly.
That's right. We are teaching Dan Ohm's Law at the moment. He's back at square one, bless him.
No joke.
Oh.
It's true. No, the industry relies on electricians. They rely on electricians to be able to perform, and they're going to want electricians to go straight back to work when the time is right.
Yeah, because this is all how we make our living. This is how we make our money, and we're all in it. And this is what E5 is about. It's about getting everybody who's involved, interested for the right reasons.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm going to try to do what I'm going to try to do. I haven't actually mastered it yet. I'm working over this weekend getting a page put together. The way I see it, this sucks. We're all on it together. Some of us are in better positions than others. That's just karma. That's just life. That's just our own choices and where we've ended up. We're going to do what we can do. Now I'm going to grind and try and support as many as I can. And if some people actually are leveled up or improved during this, then it's going to, at least it would have stood for something. It would have stood for something. We use this time just worrying and being stressed. Yeah, these are stressful times, but if we keep communicating with each other, we talk, then, we're going to figure it out.
My position is a little bit weird because obviously when I'm doing my business coaching, I've had a lot of people who were signing up to packages or whatever kind of say, let's put it on hold, which I fully understand. Some have actually paid me money and now they're like, well, everything's being cancelled. So I've said, that's fine. You can either wait or let me know what you want to do, or you can have your money back because, is what it is.
Yes.
But then I'm also getting a lot of interest in people wanting to sign up.
This is the thing though. I think right now people need to decide what to do with this time.
Yeah.
It's like I thought with these seminars, I could maybe charge for some of these seminars, but that's the wrong attitude to try to immediately create some kind of marketable project from this. The agenda is to actually give people something to aim for, to do, and to support them.
Yeah.
But it's going to take me time. It's going to cost me money to subscribe to the webinar services, and I'm going to have to get some people to help me do things like the 2396 project, which we're going to try to develop. We're going to do seminars on that project and try and help guys get through some of that. So it's a case of you can't give everything for free, but you can't just charge and try to capitalize on the situation, because then, as Ryan would say, you'd look like an absolute arsehole.
Because we've seen that, haven't we? Some people are really capitalizing on exploiting this situation, which is just
fine
wrong.
Line. Yeah. But no, I mean that is one of the things with these kind of businesses. These kind of things can create opportunities, but it's a case again going back to the C word, as Paul describes.
Compassion, yeah, and also going back to the K word, karma.
Karma.
I think karma's karma is an amazing thing. So just having a quick read up on statutory sick pay, because there was a note about, and a lot of people listening will be going, I'm self-employed. Statutory sick pay will now be available for eligible individuals diagnosed with COVID or unable to work because you're self-isolating in line with government advice. So there's a lot of Sparks out there who will be self-isolating in line with government advice, but there's also going to be ones who aren't having any symptoms. And yet they're saying now that they've extended the statutory sick pay scheme for those who aren't having symptoms. So what that does is it goes, and again, I'm reading this out of an article, it goes hand in hand with a change announced by the Prime Minister on March 4th, which was the budget. Statutory sick pay will be payable from day 1 instead of day 4. And the emergency legislation to allow payment of statutory sick pay from the first day you're sick. They've then made the statement, no one should be penalised for doing the right thing. Now, there's the statement, what if I'm self-employed? And I'll read this verbatim. The budget explains that those who are not eligible for statutory sick pay, such as self-employed people or those earning below the lower earnings limit of £118 a week, can now easily make a claim for universal credit or contributory employment and support allowance. The document explains for the duration of the outbreak, the requirements of the universal credit minimum income will be temporarily relaxed for those who have COVID-19 or are self-isolating according to government advice, ensuring self-employed claimants will receive support. So it looks like, again, I don't have much, I haven't signed off on for benefits since I was like
I've never
18. I think I was 18. I signed on for like 4 weeks, but that sounds like there is the ability to claim statutory sick pay if you're self-employed. Which,
and how much is that, Paul?
Well, it looks like £118 a week is the lower earnings limit, but I think statutory sick pay is lower than that.
It's 90.
Like 90. So.
Yeah, it's not worth much at all, to be honest with you. But then again, here we go. So the government website says you can get £94.25 a week of statutory sick pay up to 28 weeks. Statutory sick pay is paid by your employer weekly or monthly. Do you need a note from the GP? It's a discretionary employer, but they've already said that ain't going to be practicable in this current climate. So it looks like basically you're going to have to apply for statutory sick pay. Now, if you're paying a mortgage and you're self-employed, let's look at this logically. If you're paying a mortgage, you can apply for a mortgage holiday and claim for statutory sick pay. And what other benefits? Again, I'm not familiar with the benefit system, but I think a combination of getting some form of income and having a mortgage holiday is better than a kick in the nuts.
So there's options, isn't there?
Yes,
there's options for people out there.
But you've got to do the work. I mean, I'm reading this off of a website. This has only been announced in the last 2 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I claimed. I've never claimed for an income benefit, but Bella did on my behalf on Wednesday this week for the universal tax one, and that was £40 a week.
What, per child?
40.
No, for the whole family. And it took her nearly an hour and a half to fill it in for each child. And that's how much I got. But that might be because of my prior circumstance, my current circumstance. Everything is different. You have to give like everything in that form. And Bella just answered it truthfully. And that's apparently all I was kind of entitled to. So I don't even know if she's carried it on. But as I said to you guys before we started the podcast, I'll be applying for the mortgage holiday, but I'm not doing it yet because, again, things are okay at the moment. And the phone lines are just probably crammed, but probably in the next week we'll get on the phone to
I mean, I rung up about just to talk, not apply, to talk about holiday, and I did the callback option, and the callback option menu said that they'd call me back in 22.5 hours. Yeah, it's just
everything's overwhelmed right now.
Well, of course, because it's not set up there. It's like the police. If everyone in the country dialed 999 for the police, it would melt the system.
You said when you read this out, this is if you've been told to self-isolate, and you went back to some descriptions about self-isolation, house isolation, and social distancing. Is there an actual definition as to what is self-isolation? Because everyone's thinking, I've been told to self-isolate.
If you go on
where does that order come from?
Right, so if it's actually on the government website and on also the NHS.UK conditions coronavirus stay-at-home advice. So there is actually documentation on the government website and on the NHS website about what to do and how to self-isolate, basically.
But is that actually a formal instruction recommendation to self-isolate for this purpose of claiming?
It says
so. If I was, this is the thing. If I was to say I've been told to self-isolate, is that actually recognised from that guidance, or does it need?
Well, the government, the .gov UK says this is why the government has given clear guidance on self-isolation, household isolation.
But is that an instruction to?
Well, I assume if the government say please maintain social distancing and self-isolation if you demonstrate symptoms, and it's from the government.
Well, you're saying so you just said if you have symptoms.
Yes.
So if I haven't got symptoms, but I'm staying at home because I've got no work.
You'll need to stay at home if you have symptoms of coronavirus or live with someone who does. Staying at home means you could not go to work, school, or public areas, not use public transport, not have visitors such as friends and family. I'm reading this out verbatim.
Yeah.
The one thing I do think has happened and has, let's be really controversial. I think employers' duty of care to not be sued. And I'm saying that in a bit of an ironic way here. I think the inherent fear of the suing and claim culture has caused a lot of companies to shut up shop because if a member of their staff got it while under duty, they would potentially be susceptible for a claim.
Well, again, a lot of companies are making up this risk assessment as they go along. The guidance is, it's not exactly bespoke to every little working condition, is it?
Interestingly, there's a thing that says, I think some of these websites are out of date because it says get an isolation note. This is only available for people who have symptoms, been told by a healthcare professional, or live with someone. But okay, so you can do it online. Apparently, you can get an online isolation note. I don't know because I've not followed 111. I'm trying not to be a burden to each of you. I'm trying to be common sense, pragmatic. My behaviours, I genuinely believe that everything I do should contribute to the stability of society and the betterment of my community and not be a detriment, unlike some arseholes who are just making life annoying for everybody.
Yeah.
But again, just a view. Yeah, I'm sure, Dave, if we looked into all this legislation in incredible detail, we'll find loads of gaps and we'll find dissimilarities because,
I expect we will.
well, the government website hasn't been updated with the latest speech. The NHS one will probably have to follow. There is on the gov.uk website, there is guidance notes on what is isolation. And the scary thing is, it's in English and every other language under the sun. So someone has spent a lot of time writing all these documents up. And they're on the gov.gov website. So, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, listen, apologies if this has depressed you. We're just kind of chewing the fat, talking amongst ourselves, although we thought we'd record it. I have a simple view in this current situation, and that is keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, I think the message from me, I don't know if it's from all of us, but is to try to gain something from this. Try to be positive.
Yeah.
It's very easy to look at social media and online social behaviors. Try to focus on the good ones. A lot of people are seeing this negativity, and it's actually it's incentivizing them to act, in what is probably natural betterment to them, but people are actually practically being better people now.
Yeah, and I would definitely advise try not to partake in the negative things that we see on social media, and try and partake. I have to say, some of the stuff I've seen on social media that's quite fun, that you see the Italians and all that. People are finding unique ways of being incredibly creative while they're at home, and that can only be a good thing. To be honest, so maybe try and find something fun to be creative. I mean, I might actually film my garden project. I might do that. You never know. I'll probably lose about 4 stone doing it anyway. So, it's a hell of a lot of earth to move. But I think people should just try and find the positives in anything they're doing, and if they're feeling lonely or down. I mean, we're probably going to do an Instagram live every day now, of some form. So jump on Instagram live with us. Or just message us individually as a group. If you fancy a chat, if you want to talk about anything, if you're concerned or worried, we should all be there for each other. We shouldn't be a burden. We should just be there as a support network at the end of the day. That's my view on it. What's your thoughts, Dan's the man?
Yeah, just going on from what you guys have said, really. You have a choice. You can either concentrate on the bad or you can concentrate on the good. As long as we've all got our families, we've got ourselves, we've got our health. Everybody worries about money, but it's just a few numbers, and everybody's in the same boat. Literally, we're all in the same boat. So there's definitely some good opportunities, not exploiting anything, that can come out of this.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, chaps, thanks for this. I'm sure we'll have lots more private chats anyway. Hopefully this will have been some use to anybody listening. Please go away and do your own research. Get in touch if you need to. My advice again, keep calm, carry on. Make sure you're contributing some way to the people around you in a positive light. We need it more than ever now. And until the next one, thank you very much, chaps.
See you later.
See ya.
Take care of yourself and each other.